In a study done by Hootsuite, 70% of marketers said that they are confident that LinkedIn would give them a positive ROI. And that was the highest of all the various social media networks. And yet, somehow we're still not giving LinkedIn the attention it deserves as a marketing platform in terms of the impact that it can have on our business. So in this video, I really want to cover the different strategies that will really work and what's working right now in terms of growing your brand on LinkedIn. So we're going to go through things like optimizing your profile or your company page. We're also going to look at how to actually develop a powerful content marketing strategy that's tailored to LinkedIn specifically. And of course, we're going to look at examples of really, big names in the LinkedIn marketing space and what's working for them and how they're really utilizing different powerful techniques to engage with their audience that we can maybe steal a little bit for our own strategy. And then we're also going to look at some really powerful but highly underutilized features on LinkedIn that you may not have even really thought to use, but can really make an impact when it comes to your time spent on LinkedIn and your marketing strategy on this amazing platform. So let's get into everything and start with optimizing your profile. Starting with your profile picture and your banner. So it's definitely a good idea for you to have a high quality image as your profile photo, but unless you're a C-suite level executive, there's really no need for you to have one of those like professionally staged, really deep thinking profile photos against a white background that was clearly shot in a studio. And actually even real CEOs are sort of opting to have profile photos now that show a little bit of warmth and creativity. Yes, they're still high quality, but they're not necessarily these kind of posed stage profile photos. So you can have a look at examples like Melanie Perkins or Matt Cooper here for examples of how even high power executives are doing this. And as for your banner, think about this as just a space to go beyond just what your profile photo shows, because obviously you can't get too creative with just a photo of your head. So this is where you can get really, really creative and capture your audience's attention. This can act as almost like a 24/7 elevator pitch where it includes your tagline, your website, maybe a call to action, and any accolades or anything else that you want to put in there. So you can see an example like the one from Neil Patel here that features all of these different things, or you can actually just utilize the space to further show off a little bit more of your personality and creativity like Bill Gates has done here. So it's completely up to you in the way that you choose to approach this, but these are the first things that people look at when they look at someone's LinkedIn profile. So you want to make sure that you're actually taking up that real estate. And I do have another video tutorial on how to create not just a powerful LinkedIn banner, but one that is actually mobile friendly and mobile optimized. So you can check that out here. Next, let's talk about your headline and your about section. So you don't just want to be listing your actual job title whenever possible. You want to be talking about how you help people or what you've accomplished, what's unique about you specifically, while also keeping in mind the search terms that people might be looking for when they are within the LinkedIn search function, when they're looking for someone with your skill set. What are the things that you think people might actually be searching for that you can put into your headline? So you can look at examples of people who have gone beyond just a simple job title like designer. For example, Jeremy's headline here, which is nice and punchy and a little bit unique, or James's one here, again, which just goes beyond that traditional job title while still keeping things quite relevant. And there are AI tools like Copy AI's free headline generator that you can utilize to kind of help you brainstorm what yours might be. All right, now in terms of your about section, you just want to think of this as almost like you're telling a story to your ideal client. So this is where you can share a little bit about your career journey, what are any kind of highlights or accomplishments that you might want to feature, and then potentially thinking about how you can actually tap into their, questions or pain points and how you can really help them understand how you can help them if they were to connect with you or work with you. But just keep in mind that you are limited to about 370 characters before it actually gets a little bit cut off and people have to click the see more button for you to actually see your whole story, because it can be quite lengthy. So you want to make sure that that first paragraph is really punchy and kind of speaks to your target client or target audience, and then the rest is kind of just like nice to haves if somebody wants to know more. Then there's the featured section. So this is where you want to add some links to any media publications you might have done, any guest appearances you might have done, your most popular blog posts, your offers, even really popular LinkedIn posts that you've created that had got a lot of engagement, for example. Essentially, this is just where your best stuff needs to be highlighted. So if somebody comes across your feed, you're kind of directing them towards the content that you really want them to engage with first. So you'll see on my own profile, this is where I feature my courses, any interviews that I've done, and some guest publications that I've done on prominent publications in my industry. Now, as a company page, the steps are relatively similar. Using Canva as an example here, you want to make sure you have a high quality profile photo, which in this case would be the company logo. Then your banner is really clear and captivates the attention of your audience when they come onto your profile or your company page. And then you want to make sure everything is filled out. So your about section is clear and states exactly what you do and who you do it for. Specifically within the overview section, you want to make sure that this is, possibly keyword rich, but really just very well filled out, so that if somebody comes across this page, they know exactly who you are, what you do, who you do it for, and why they should connect with you and follow you. Essentially everything I would need to know if I was brand new, being introduced to your company for the very first time. I need to know exactly all of the information that I need to know within the first 5 to 10 seconds to decide whether I want to follow you on LinkedIn and engage with you further. So that's all about optimizing your profile, and now we're going to get into some next steps. Starting with creating content that connects. So just like with every other platform, there's no one type of content that does really well on LinkedIn. And not to mention that when we look at the popular accounts to follow on LinkedIn that we're gonna talk about in the next section, you will really start to notice that LinkedIn and their content strategy on LinkedIn is just one piece of the puzzle and one piece of their sort of online ecosystem. So they're not just publishing on LinkedIn, they're also appearing on podcasts, they're writing newsletters, they've got speaking engagements, they're posting on Instagram, they're going live on YouTube, they're doing all these things. There's no one person that I've found that purely exists on LinkedIn and is huge. It all sort of works together as social media does. So just keep that in mind as we talk about your LinkedIn strategy, is that it shouldn't exist in isolation from the other parts of your business. It should kind of fit into the greater piece of the puzzle. But for now, let's have a look at some powerful content types that you can leverage. So LinkedIn's algorithm loves variety, and so does your audience. So you want to make sure that you are creating images and text-only posts and infographics, and especially videos whenever possible. So yes, videos are a lot more work, but they get so much more engagement, and they just develop that know, like, and trust factor in a way that the other content types definitely won't in the same way. So I really want to encourage you to dive into video, but not necessarily just, square or horizontal videos like we've seen in the past. LinkedIn is really pushing the short form vertical video content, as the other platforms are also doing. So it's trying to compete with platforms like TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram Reels. So it means that the barrier to entry is a little bit lower, and you're able to actually experiment with video format without having to sit down for an hour-long interview if that's just not right for your brand. But I also want to give a special shout out to infographics and carousels on LinkedIn, because these are two content types that may not, do as well on other platforms, but they're really powerful for LinkedIn when it comes to showing off your expertise. And we can see that from this example from Jeremy here, where he creates these powerful carousels that have all this information on them and showcase his skills, and then also give us a call to action at the end. But it can also be really simpler, or much simpler than that, like this carousel over here. Plus you can then repurpose these for the likes of Instagram and other platforms, and I love that. That's just a hot bonus. So that's all about LinkedIn carousels, and of course also utilizing the power of infographics, which can be huge on the platform and something that people really engage with and share quite a lot. But the next content type that I want to talk about, which is highly underutilized, is LinkedIn articles. So the reason I love LinkedIn articles so much is because it means you can share your expertise without having a website or a blog to actually publish actively on. And LinkedIn articles are so powerful that when you actually Google something like how to become an engaging speaker, which is something that, you could potentially be a coach on. You could be teaching people how to do public speaking and how to become, a paid public speaker. That could be your area of expertise, but you don't have a website, or you have a website, but it's probably something that could be quite tricky to rank on Google. So instead, you publish an article on LinkedIn, and it actually appears in the first page of Google search results among are other really prominent publications like Forbes and Harvard Business Review. And that is amazing considering, posts like this were written by people who, didn't get a whole lot of engagement on this post either. It's just because LinkedIn itself has such a high domain authority within Google that when you publish directly onto LinkedIn, it actually ranks that post above something that would be on your own personal website. And that is huge. You don't necessarily need to be a big, super active LinkedIn publisher in order to get your articles ranked on Google. And then you could potentially promote your services within that article. So somebody who Googles this particular, search term, finds your article, finds your services, and that could be like a $5,000, $10,000 coaching client that you've gotten just from one LinkedIn article. So it can be such a powerful content type, and people just aren't utilizing it as much because everyone is so hot and bothered about publishing on their own websites, which I totally understand. But the beauty, again, of LinkedIn articles is also that you're not taking people away from the platform when you're sharing that article with your network, which means the reach is naturally going to be higher because every social network has this giant goal to keep people on the platform for longer. And by publishing directly on LinkedIn, you're doing that. You're not taking people and putting them on your website. So LinkedIn is going to reward you for that by making sure that that post, when you share it, goes out to more people. And again, it helps you establish your credibility and you become an expert in your field, and you can share that directly with your network without having to go through the tedious process of setting up your own blog or website. So definitely want to encourage you to look into publishing LinkedIn articles as regularly as possible. So next, let's talk about storytelling versus selling. Accounts that exist purely to sell you on something are, well, they're just icky, but also they just don't work on LinkedIn. They might work on a platform like Instagram, at least temporarily, but definitely not going to work on LinkedIn. So this is where you want to be sharing, lessons you've learned, successes, failures, your personal stories. And of course, look, eventually you're going to have to ask somebody to buy something from you because you're running a business. So of course that time is going to come, but I want you to think of it as more of the journey, not the actual destination. So you want the largest part of your content to focus on industry expertise or your industry experiences. And someone who does this really, really well is Gary Vee, who shares exactly this type of content super frequently with his 5 million LinkedIn followers. Then you want to make sure you're sharing some more personal content with your audience as well. Again, looking to Gary Vee, he does this really well where he shared that he passed on an opportunity to invest in Uber in the early days twice. And that is something we can all relate to because I bet we all wish that we could have done that in the early days when it comes to Uber and Apple and Tesla and every other company that we now know would be worth a heck of a lot more money than it was back then. So it's something that's really, really relatable to his audience. He also shares his values like he does through this post over here, which is just a simple way to connect with your audience. It doesn't have to be super complicated with a, elaborate graphic or video. Sometimes just a really quick couple of lines to basically tell your audience what your values are, and that's something that's a little bit more personal that they can connect with, can make a huge difference in how they interpret your personal or business brand. And someone else who does this really well is Stephen Bartlett, who shares some real human vulnerable content on his LinkedIn profile and on other networks as well. But one thing that he does really well is sharing the stuff that didn't go so well, or the stuff that he's working on that doesn't even really exist yet. He might share the behind the scenes of projects that are still in the making, and that means that by the time those things launch, people are so invested because they were along for the journey that this whole time, that when it launches into the world, they're like, yes, take my money. Where do I sign up? Because they saw it from the inception of this product. And if it doesn't go well, then you're sort of building it out in public. And again, that's just a little bit more human, which is the kind of thing that you can do when you're a multi-millionaire and you already have authority in the space. It's a little bit trickier if you haven't built that authority, but that is all to say that people really appreciate that personal side of your business as much as they appreciate the other side, the more professional side. So to recap, essentially you want the bulk of your content to be industry expertise and your professional experiences, and you definitely want to dedicate a pretty big chunk of it to that kind of more vulnerable, raw, human, personal side whenever possible, if that's right for your brand, of course. And then we finally get to the last piece of the puzzle, which is your conversion content. So this is where you actually ask for whatever it is that you're going to ask for, and it's important important that you actually know what that is. So do you want more calls? Do you want more appointments? Do you want more sales? Do you want more coaching clients, more product sales? Whatever it is for you in your business, you just need to know what are you actually asking people to do. Because until you really know what your ultimate goal is with LinkedIn, your strategy is not really gonna make any sense, because you need to know what you're working towards. And I do have a separate video tutorial over here on how you can make a beautiful, powerful social media strategy, all with the help of AI, based on your goals as well. So make sure to check that out. But for now, let's talk about how this actually works in practice on LinkedIn. So Justin Walsh is the master of LinkedIn. He is one of the top voices on LinkedIn in terms of LinkedIn marketing specifically. And he is so good at continuously sharing his knowledge, his experiences and his expertise, and also his personal side with his audience, so that by the time he creates posts where he actually asks for people to enroll in his programs or book a mentoring session or all the different areas of his business that he can actually get money from, people are so ready to buy. They're like waiting for it. They're waiting for him to just ask for them to open up their wallets. And you can see it in the comment section. People are so engaged with his conversion content, which is a little bit nuts, because generally sales posts are not the ones that get hundreds of comments. But for him, this is true. And that's just because of how he sort of built his content strategy on LinkedIn. But of course, like we talked about, it doesn't exist in isolation. A really big part of Justin's success on LinkedIn, as well as other creators, is their engagement strategy. So that's exactly what we're going to look at next. By the way, in case you are interested, I do go into way more depth on this topic in terms of how to succeed on not just on LinkedIn, but also on Facebook, Instagram, X, Pinterest, TikTok, and YouTube, and in terms of organic and also paid social ads, and how to develop a content strategy, how to optimize your workflow, how to deal with automations, and basically everything you've ever wanted to know about social media marketing in my powerful social media marketing course. So I do cover all of that, and you can check out the trailer for that particular course and everything that's on the inside in the description below. All right, so now let's talk about how to engage with your network, starting with your commenting strategy. So just like with every other platform, if you're just purely a creator on the platform and you're just posting content, you're really not going to see much engagement from people. You need to actually give a little to get a little. And these platforms are called social media platforms for a reason, and you need to get a little bit social in order to really see their impact. So you want to make sure you're carving out 10 to 15 minutes per day to just engaging with your community on LinkedIn and developing those more meaningful conversations and meaningful relationships, and even helping people out. On other people's posts, people are often asking questions, and you don't often see the creators actually responding to these questions. That can be your opportunity to jump in and say, I'm not sure what Steven here thinks, and he might jump in with another resource, but actually I found this particular tool to be really helpful. You can get really helpful like that without sort of stepping on the toes of the original creators of the post. People like Harry here are absolute masters of this. I know for a fact Harry did this for years. At the very least, like one whole year was him dedicated to just providing pure value through comment sections on LinkedIn and on Instagram. And this is how he built his huge audience of people who are now ready to return the favor and do the same for him. I mean, it definitely helps that he also creates really powerful content. You can't just be a really great commenter and then not create anything, because then people feel a little bit shortchanged, you know? They kind of want to give as much as they receive in terms of value. So you want to make sure you are consistently creating content, but having a powerful engagement strategy like that through your comments and making sure that they are meaningful and engaging comments, not just like great posts, well done, that can be such a powerful addition to your strategy. Next, you want to make sure you're also sending out personalized connection requests, and that those connection requests are ideally largely from within your industry or complementary fields, because you want to make sure that the large base of your audience are people who can get value out of the content you're sharing and can actually engage with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with like connecting with your high school friends or, you know, people you meet at street block parties on LinkedIn, but they're maybe not the people who are going to really froth on the stuff that you actually share that, you know, for me might be related to creating online courses or marketing. My neighbor might have absolutely no interest in that and may not engage with it. So you want to make sure that you are sort of prioritizing those industry connections, because those are the people that are your people. But then you also want to make sure that those connection requests are personalized, where you maybe tell them how you found them or why you want to connect, instead of just sort of bulk trying to connect with anyone and everyone, because it can be really hard to actually accept an invite from someone where you have absolutely no idea what value I've added to their life or what's going on. And not to mention that when they accept your LinkedIn invite to connect and you have actually provided a bit of context around why you want to connect, it starts a personalized, you know, private conversation between you two, and you can start building that relationship. So that's just a bit of a bonus. And then you can also leverage LinkedIn groups and virtual events. So industry specific LinkedIn groups and events can be a goldmine for networking and for getting content ideas, and just for kind of seeing what's happening in your space and developing new connections. And then if you're feeling extra fancy, of course you can host your own event or start your own group on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in learning more about how to grow your social media presence and how your social media can grow your business past just the point of growing your brand on LinkedIn, then I would definitely check out this other video where we dive into that in much more depth. So I hope to see you there.